Every day in Jamaica and around the world, people mysteriously go missing, vanishing into thin air. The reasons may be as many as the disappearances themselves.
Some may have run away or been murdered or killed in accidents. But thousands, maybe millions, have been sold and traded like objects in one of the most profitable businesses of the 21st century. I'm Leroy Hall.
And I am Deidre Dixon. Join us as we travel into the underworld of modern slavery tonight on CS311.
Crime Stop Jamaica and National Bakery, in association with TVJ and our sponsors, Guardsman, Home and Things, Careers Jamaica, Grace Kennedy, Progressive Grocers and Musson Foundation present CS311 with Deidre Dixon and Leroy Hall.
The history books tell us that slavery was abolished in the 1800s, but that date means nothing to the millions around the world who are being stripped of the most basic of freedoms, even as we speak. They are mainly women, countless children, but also men.
Trapped, transported, and imprisoned for sex, labor, war, and for profit. Hidden in plain view of the world, but powerless to escape their captors, fearing revenge, torture, or even worse.
DSP Carl Berry knows this story only too well. As the head of the Jamaica Constabulary Force's anti-trafficking unit, he has years of experience in cases of human trafficking. You feel it couldn't happen to you here in Jamaica? He told us otherwise.
The Global Slavery Index in 2016 reported that in excess of 45.8 million people are enslaved globally. What we have achieved locally in the last 5 or so years since we have been properly collecting statistics, we have rescued in excess of 86 victims of human trafficking. We have arrested in excess of 30 suspected perpetrators, and 5 have so far been convicted. But there are clues and red flags that can be used to identify an individual. For example, if the person is an expatriate, a foreigner for example, in your country, the question of where is the person's passport. Normally, traffickers will withhold the passport, and we can understand why. If you are in possession of your passport, the likelihood of leaving is available. For those in forced labor, we see the withholding of salaries, we see the non-payment of salaries, or really significant lower payment with respect to the amount of wages they should earn. We know that for debt bondage, which is another area, we see they having some unrealistic debt. People are told that they are owing when they didn't enter into a contract. Forced marriages, you could just go to Boko Haram and the story told in Nigeria when the kids, 300 Chibok girls, were taken away and forced to marry other people. So that's also one way in which it manifests itself. But we ask people to look for trauma signs and trauma signals. Look for people who are normally happy, but all of a sudden they are withdrawn. They no longer want to participate. Because what trafficking does to individuals and the exploitation is it forces them not to want to try again. They are so exploited in a way that they are ashamed. But the reality is that's a trigger, and we ask people to call us so that we can continue to probe. We also tell people not to try and solve these crimes themselves, because these are dangerous criminals at work. We're talking about Boko Haram, that's terrorism. We're talking about transnational organized criminals. These people have no difficulty killing people. So we ask that the information comes to us and we will deal with it. Once the traffickers have made their business plan human trafficking, it's like other businesses, people have rationalized and say, what's the most lucrative for us to get in? So every January 1st to December 31st, this criminal network gets about 150 billion US dollars. So the criminals will rationalize, they do. They're not the smartest in the world, but they are business and tech savvy, and they'll utilize that to exploit.
When Gillian Ennis and Fitzgerald Brown joined the regulars at the local bar, all they were hoping for was to share around and forget the cares of the day. and of course to catch up on the latest events in town.
Little did they know that before the night was over, they would become the breaking news.
Just outside of Black River, St. Elizabeth, about 5 minutes drive away, is Cambridge District, usually a laid-back, friendly community. But not on the night of Saturday, September 2nd, 2017. After the shooting, 2 men lay dead and another injured. Dead were Mr. Julian Ellis, also known as Ella, and Mr. Fitzgerald Jr. Brown, 28 years old.
He was a jovial person, someone who you could get along with.
Someone who you could depend on in the case of any and everything. He went the distance for everybody in the family and in the community. It changes the family in a drastic way. Knowing the relationship that everybody had with him and losing him, nobody can even really cope with it up to today's date. Yeah. He loved everybody, he cared for everyone, and losing him was one of the biggest things that could ever happen. Well, he was one of the young person in the community. Everybody knew him, everybody was close to him, and everybody talks about it over and over. Alright, it is very important to come forward with information because it is hard to know that you have lost someone. Knowing the type of person he was, nobody expected him to go in this way. The pain that has left behind is just unbearable.
Crime Stop is offering a total of $100,000 for information leading to the arrest of those responsible for this murder, and maybe the murder of many others. If you know anything, please call 311. Jamaica deserves better than this.
Come forward and stop these killers. Stop the traffickers. If we don't, who will? Trafficking is something that feels far removed from most of our lives, but it's happening all around us. It might surprise you to learn that more than half of the victims worldwide are trafficked in their own country.
Here are some other statistics that you should know.
They say life is the most precious commodity, and the figures certainly prove that. Trading in human freedom is the world's 3rd most profitable trade. Illegal revenue from human trafficking earns $150 billion a year, surpassed only by drug trafficking and the counterfeit trade. In fact, the International Labour Organization estimates that at any given time, 40.3 million people are trapped in modern-day slavery. It's horrifying to know that 30 to 50% of modern slaves are children, many of them sold by their own parents to exploit for labor or sex. Women and girls are the main targets, representing about 99% of victims in the commercial sex industry. But boys and men are also targets. Some victims are trapped to work by force in domestic service, some in agriculture, mining, construction, the fishing industry, sweatshops, and the drug trade. Others are individuals desperately seeking freedom, money, and safety, who are tricked and then double-crossed by the very people who they turn to for help. Sadly, even in countries where human trafficking is criminalized, most investigations do not result in the conviction of traffickers.
It's hard to imagine living from day to day without knowing what happened to my child, my mother, father, or even my sibling. The families of the people you are about to see are searching for their missing loved ones. Please, please help if you can.
Missing, brought to you by Progressive Grocers. An Ananda alert had been issued for then 15-year-old Chloe Baker of Smith Lane, Kingston, who has been missing since Monday, October 23, 2017. She is of dark complexion, medium build, and is about 163 centimeters or 5 feet 4 inches tall. Chloe Baker was last seen at school at 9:30 a.m. She was dressed in a white merino and black tights. 32-year-old Andre Dare, otherwise called Stalawa, of Lindale Avenue, Kingston 20, has been missing since September 2017. He is of dark complexion, medium build, and about 182 centimeters or 6 feet tall. Mr. Dare was last seen in Gordontown, St. Andrew, dressed in a white t-shirt and a pair of blue jeans. 23-year-old Denise Sanguinetti of Prospect District, Manchester, has been missing since Wednesday, March 9, 2016. She's of stout build and dark complexion, has a black spot on her face close to her nose, and is about 168 centimeters or 5 feet 6 inches tall. Miss Sanguinetti was last seen leaving home to buy medication for her child, but has not been seen or heard from since. At the time she went missing, she was wearing a pink spaghetti strap blouse, black pants, and a pair of black slippers. She was also carrying a black handbag.
The story you are about to hear is almost too amazing to believe. Amazing because something that started out very casually quickly turned into a young woman's most terrifying nightmare.
Well, I was a college student that was on a full athletic track scholarship. When I injured my hamstring, I lost my scholarship, and when I went to the financial aid office to, look about going back to school on my own, after taking out loans and financial aid, I was $3,000 short. So I decided that I would get a job. When while at work one day, while crossing the street, I saw a car coming towards me, and the car looked familiar. A gentleman got out the car, and he introduced himself. We exchanged numbers, and we started to have conversations. While having these conversations, I never thought that I never saw any red flag. He was asking, well, why are you working so much? And I said to him, well, I'm trying to save this $3,000 to go back to school. And he said, well, if you have an off-campus apartment and you have those bills to pay, there's no way that you can save this $3,000. I have a basement apartment that you can stay at rent-free. I have a way you can make quick money. He said, you ever thought about dancing? And he was referring to exotic dancing. And the first thing that came to my mind is my mother would kill me. I gave it some thought, and he said, the guys who are involved in these clubs, they can be dangerous, but don't worry, I'll be there to protect you. The first time he put me into a club, in 2 hours, I gained $300 in 2 hours, and I started to do the math. 2 hours, $300. In no time, I'm going to get this money to go back to school. Then he pulled me out the club, and he brought me to this house on a regular residential block in Brooklyn. And he said it was $10 for a wall dance and $20 for a lap dance. This one guy was bold enough to ask me how much it was for oral sex. And I started to curse this guy out. The trafficker, again, who was unbeknownst to me at the time, because I'm just thinking this guy's still my friend who is helping me out, making sure I'm safe, pulled me to the side and said, you're going to do whatever that guy said do. And I said, did you hear what he asked me? And he said, yes, it's $50. I remember telling him then, I'm just going to leave. And I remember when I took one step forward, he put his hand around my throat and brought me back to my position and said, do you really think you can make it out of here alive? But when we got back to the house, I went to him and I said, listen, you're a really nice guy. Thanks so much for offering me your basement apartment and for trying to help me get some money to go back to school. But you mentioned dancing and you didn't say anything about prostitution, and that is not my cup of tea. So I'm going to go downstairs and pack my things and I'm going to leave. And again, he came after my throat and I punched him in the face. And that's when I learned rule number 1, to never hit a pimp. Because he had rings on his fingers, he had on construction Timberland boots, and he just started punching me in the face and kicking me in the stomach and choked me to the point of unconsciousness. That cycle of abuse continued for 18 months. 18 months as what I would describe as severe torture in every sense of the word torture. I was severely beaten. I witnessed other young ladies be severely beaten. I was raped. I was sodomized. A gun was placed in my mouth and the trigger was pulled. So when you talk about torture, whatever comes to mind when you hear torture happens to trafficking victims. You know, a lot of people ask, well, why don't you just leave, or why don't you just run? If I was in that situation, I would just run away. But when, you know, someone is telling you, I will kill you or I will kill your family, and they beat you to the point where you think the next blow you're gonna die, you take that person for their word. The man that trafficked me was caught, and he's currently serving 24 and a half years for taking a plea to trafficking a 12-year-old. So he had numerous of crimes that was brought against him, and he took a plea for trafficking a 12-year-old. And even now that he's in prison, he caught a charge before he was even sentenced for breaking the jaw of a corrections officer. And not last year, the year before, he caught a sexual assault charge in prison.
After 18 months of torment, Shamir Mackenzie escaped with her life. Others have not been that lucky. Don't allow yourself to become the next victim.
One of the less known reasons for trafficking is the kidnapping of victims to remove and sell their organs. Crimes like this will only continue if we allow criminals like this to walk free.
Next up is Most Wanted. Watch carefully. These individuals were being sought for various crimes up to the time of this program.
Kemar Simpson, otherwise called Little Kemi or Damien, is wanted in connection to the murder of 23-year-old Andre Williams, otherwise called Blinky, in Havana Heights, Denby, Clarendon. Kemar Simpson is of dark complexion, 5 feet 10 inches or 178 centimeters tall, has a round face with a big jaw and straight nose. He was clean-shaven when last seen. Damian Henry, otherwise called Devil, is wanted in connection to the murder of Mr. Arain Kalahar on June 6, 2016. There was a domestic dispute and Mr. Kalahar was stabbed in the neck. He died at hospital. Damian Devil Henry is still on the run.
Knowledge gives us power. Protect yourself with the following safety tips.
Safety Tips, sponsored by Guardsman.
Jamaica has become a center of focus for human trafficking. Human trafficking from the Far East, the Middle East, South America, and we need to be conscious of what it is. Even our own Jamaicans are being trafficked on the island. Persons who are being trafficked are forced to carry out functions that they really don't want to. Today, it could be them. Tomorrow, it could be someone that you know. And therefore, if you are aware of persons being trafficked, it's your duty and responsibility to bring it to the attention of the authorities. You know, there are hundreds of thousands of people that are trafficked across the world each day. We need to ensure that our Jamaican people are safe, our work environment is safe, because what it does is that trafficked persons work for little or nothing, and therefore it denies somebody the opportunity of a fair wage and a fair job. So it's our duty to blow the whistle. Say what you know, say what you have seen. Step out against human trafficking.
Some people are kidnapped and taken by force into slavery. Others become willing victims, not realizing the danger until it's too late.
Yes. Is this New Beginnings Career Services?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm calling about the overseas jobs advertised on Facebook.
Oh, yes, yes. What's your age and your skills?
I am 19, sir. And I did a little bit of waitressing here and there.
Education?
No, sir, I don't have any subjects. I dropped out of school, but I'm a hard worker, you know, sir, and I am willing to learn.
True. You see, I believe that when you're young and willing, you have everything in your favor. Actually, you know, we might have some excellent opportunities in Florida for caregivers.
Seriously?
For the elderly, that is. Pays well though, 14 US an hour.
I think I could manage that. I took care of my grandmother for years before she passed away.
Family. You have any other family?
No, sir. Granny was my only family, and now that she's gone,
I see.
I really need the work, sir. Okay, where can I send an application? I don't see an address.
No. We run a completely virtual operation. You just need to send me one passport size photo and a full-length one.
Picture? You don't want my resume or reference,
No,
sir?
we'll have plenty of time for that, man. But by the way, what about passport and your US visa?
I do have a visa, sir, and a passport.
Excellent. We can take care of the work permit. But you need to be able to travel in the next 2 weeks.
Just like
You can
that?
manage that?
No interview? I mean, can I get some more details?
What details do you need? As we go along, you will learn more about the process. For now, just WhatsApp me the pictures, all right? And the visa information. I will take care of the rest. As young and bright as you are, high-paying jobs don't just fall into your lap. And legitimate permits take time. Inexperienced people with limited education and few ties are prime targets for traffickers. Never share personal information too willingly without doing your own research, and always inform someone you know when traveling abroad. Don't be scammed.
One belief that unites most of us in Jamaica is our right to be free, to go where we want, when we want, and with whom we please. Crime threatens that basic freedom. Human trafficking completely destroys it.
It might not be today, but don't believe that none of this could happen to you. We have to stop the criminals now. I'm Leroy Hall.
And I'm Deidre Dixon. Keep up the fight until we meet again.